the only thing I can describe it as is like a swirling black mist. If you had a bunch of gnats, or if you've ever had like a bunch of, like fruit flies, it looked like millions of fruit flies or gnats swirling in a spiral. And as they swirled, they seemed to be turning into something. And what they turned into was a wolf. And we're both, at this point, maybe 7 feet away from this thing, something like that. And we're just looking at this right before our very eyes. There's 2 of us, so we know we're in for something. And there's not enough of us to be really safe in numbers. So it swirls into this, coalesces into this figure of a wolf, this big canine. And as we're looking at it, it starts walking towards us. Now things are getting really real. It's not just swirling mist and gnats or whatever. It's a physical looking wolf coming towards us. And we are really gathering for what to do. Too close to run. Neither of us are armed. And we're freaking out. And as our freak out level goes through the roof, it de-manifests. It starts spiraling back into this mist, or this I don't know. As I've studied more about this, you'll find this in other cultures too. The Middle East talks about a lot of shapeshifters. They attribute everything to the jinn. And it's much like, Aladdin and the magic lamp. They believe that these entities, these shapeshifter entities, at least in the Middle East, talking with many of the top scientists, including Jacques Vallée and many others, a lot of cultures have this belief of something that can shapeshift, or turn from one thing into another. And it sure seemed to be doing that right in front of our eyes. But what it is, I may never know what it is, or how it does what it does. Whether it's a alien artificial technology, whether it's just some ancient form of magic or witchcraft, or what exactly we saw that particular evening. Other nights we see other things, but that particular evening still sticks out in my mind. One really interesting thing about this area is that it's difficult to connect the dots on what you see. So obviously, because that took the form of a canine, my head goes exactly to shapeshifters, the witchery way, skinwalkers, etc. But yet moments before, it seemed to be some sort of high technology, not of this planet, hovering around the desert landscape, searching for something. So it's really hard to connect some of these dots sometimes. On another evening, to give you sort of a different twist, we were in an area and I saw what appeared to be a very lanky, I thought it was some sort of security, a lanky individual, way thinner than most and way taller than most. And it was right there, it was close, and had a little red headlamp on, as hunters wear. And it was sort of pulling it off. It had kind of a flannel shirt on, red and black, had a walkie-talkie clip to him, and looked dressed fairly human, but the head was real long, like real skinny, as I said, real long, maybe 140 pounds, maybe 7 feet tall. Didn't look right. And it was looking at me, I was looking at it, and its walkie-talkie went off and it talked into it, but it wasn't English, and it wasn't Spanish, and it wasn't any other language I've ever heard. It definitely sounded something more alien, is the best way I can describe it. And after checking in with whatever he was checking in with, it turned and it walked back down into, I don't know where, but it looked like it went back into an area that I wasn't about to follow it into. But that was more of a, when it comes to the UFO alien thing, that's probably the closest I'd ever come to anything that I could call alien looking. So still not sure what it was. Still don't know to this day. I just know what I saw. I know what we saw, and it's just there. Now, going into why I've kind of kept doing this and why I purchased Space Wolf Research, which is just south of what's formerly known as the Utah UFO Ranch. It just popped up, and it was a place where Dave Rosenfeld and the Utah UFO hunters, this was the spot to go. This was a place I knew very well. I'd been there many nights and seen amazing things. So when I saw that it was for sale, it's not much to look at, but when I saw it was for sale, I was like, I felt like I had to have it. I just had to have it. And so I did it, I bought it. And that kind of threw a wrench into my life, because now I can safely, well, not safely, but I can legally go to an area that I'm very familiar, I love. It's kind of a romance, like a love-hate relationship with a lot of this high strangeness, because you never know exactly what you're going to see, but there is that recognition of the spot. You know, you just it's familiar territory, familiar ground. Well, I purchased that property, and I had no idea what I was going to do with it. What's odd about this is when I did purchase the property, I had heard tales in and around the area of other people having strange experiences. One particular experience that really stood out to me were 3 researchers that went up with a couple other people, and they went to an area, they did a blood ritual of sorts using some magic that they found online or something, I'm not quite sure, so I won't go into that. But they did some kind of a blood ritual. You know, they set up camp. They knew they were pretty close to where they wanted to be to see what they wanted to see. And this property had been abandoned for quite some time. When they visited it, it was an abandoned property, nothing there, just an empty house. And they went back and they kind of set up camp. Good folks, I've met them and talked to them. But they were all in the medical field at the time, intelligent people. And long story short, during the night they had some of the most horrific events take place that I had ever heard of. Come to find out later that those took place on the property I purchased. Now, I didn't know it at the time. That came out years and years later when I talked to them. But they went up, they set up camp, made a little fire, put their tents out, and they had what they can only describe as a black crab type creature, entity thing that approached their camp, probably the size of a football, you know? And what's strange about this location, and it happens all the time when you talk to people, is it'll mess with your emotions. The Department of Defense has coined it a precognitive sentient intelligence, which basically means it's some sort of intelligence that knows what you're thinking before you think it, and it can display itself to the observer in a way that is cognitive to their emotional situation at that point.